This is the Red Line, and I am your host, Jimmy Red. Thanks for tuning in. I know we took a couple weeks off there. Hopefully you guys had a good few holidays with your family. So feels good to be back on camera. A lot of stuff happened in sports. College football, bowl games. Let's go. So first off, with the college bowl games, there was a lot of big ones that happened. We're going to talk about the BCS bowls here. You had the Cotton Bowl that had Ohio State versus USC. Excuse me, had to clear my throat there. USC ended up losing the game to Ohio State in very, very bad fashion. Ohio State completely dominated them. JT Barrett looked really good in his final game. Took the all-time passing record from the Big Ten from Drew Brees. And Sam Darnold looked like he didn't even belong on the same field. So Ohio State walked right through them and made them look completely irrelevant to the game. And it made Ohio State show why the Big Ten is such a good conference right there. The other game you had was Wisconsin-Miami. Amazing. Wisconsin has a very bright future. Very, 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 very bright. When your star running back, Jonathan Taylor, is a true freshman, and your wide receiver, Danny Davis, is a true freshman, and your quarterback is Alex Hornibrook, and he's a sophomore, you have a very, very, very bright future. I understand you play in the Big Ten West, so you don't play against anybody that good. But next year, you got to go on the road to some big places. Like you have to play Michigan on the road. You have to play Ohio State on the road. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough to win those games. If you find a way to win those games, you have a very bright future ahead of you guys. And I think you guys can find a way to possibly sneak yourself in to the Big Ten Championship. And if you do that, that's what I'm talking about. The Penn State-Washington game. I want to touch on that one just a little bit because I don't want to dabble too hard on the Penn State looking like they were rough there. I mean, Penn State won the game, but it was way closer than it should have been. I don't think Penn State came out in full force and ready to go. Reason I say that is because Saquon already, I have a feeling, told his coach, James Franklin, going to the draft. So Franklin limited what he was going to allow him to do. When Franklin limited him, he was your inspiration to that team. He was your leader. He was your guide. And you take him off the field, and now that gives it over to Trace McSorley, and he has to run the team. Well, he hasn't had to do it all year because you've had Saquon to do it. Well, when he had to do that, it just looks sluggish. Next year he's going to have to do it, but they look sluggish. And then Washington has three players that are very talented individuals that you would definitely think of that could play at the next level. I'm not going to say they're going to be elite, but you could think would go to the next level and be pretty good football players. You have Jake Browning, their quarterback. You have Miles Gaston, who is their running back. And then you have Danny Pettis, their wide receiver. Pettis didn't play much during that game, and Gaston busted out like a 79-yard run against Penn State's defense. So they came ready to go. They didn't have to really worry about rallying behind anybody because their leader was Jake Browning, who's been there all year. With Saquon not playing as much, Penn State had to find a way to rally behind somebody new. So I don't take much from that. Penn State still won. Washington looked like Washington has pretty much all year. No surprise that Penn State won that game. Little surprised how close it was, but no surprise Penn State won that game. Next, Auburn and USC. That there was awesome. To see an AAC, an American Athletic Conference player / team / coach, everybody come in and play the powerhouse that everybody loves, the SEC, Auburn, and beat them with a coach who's leaving to go to Nebraska. The team is undefeated, wins the game, and had an amazing game. They didn't play the best game they ever played, but Auburn didn't either. Neither one played their best game they played all year. But for a small team to go and play a team that has beat 2 out of the 4 teams that are in the conference, because they beat Georgia, and then they beat Alabama, and then Georgia beat them. But to beat a team that has beat 2 of the 4 teams that are in the playoffs, and you're undefeated, gives you a case on why you should have been in the playoffs. If you were to select a playoff today, knowing that information, I think UCF gets in. Sorry. I think they get in easily because they just went in and beat Auburn. So if they could have beat Auburn in the regular season, they would have been into the playoffs, no question asked. They didn't. So that's where that comes in and changes. Do I think they have a great program? Yes. Is it going to hurt them to lose their coach? Yes. I don't think Auburn's going to be as good as they were next year because they're losing their quarterback in Stidham, and they're also losing Kerryon Johnson, who went to the draft. So Auburn won't be as good either next year. But it's amazing to see a small team come in and do that and make a case why they should expand the playoffs to 8 teams. If you expand it to 8 teams, that gives you your 5 powerhouse teams in, plus 3 that could get in. So that would have gave you your chance to put in your Alabama still and UCF, and you could have put in a Penn State, an Ohio State who was already in, but you could have put in a Penn State, a Wisconsin, a USC, a Miami, somebody like that who deserved a shot in with them. So you could have had 8 teams in there that was well deserving of this title, and UCF could have fought for it because it's very well plausible they could have done something. I would have loved to have seen it. So I think they should have gave them a shot, but I understand that you didn't at the same time. Now the 2 I really, really, really want to talk about. The semifinal games. First, let's talk about the one that was kind of a game, but it wasn't as much as a game as everybody really planned on it being, and that was the Alabama-Clemson game. Oh my. That was a game that was just way different than any of the games that played. Kelly Bryant, dominant player, steps in for Deshaun Watson, who we all know went out and went into the draft this year and plays for the Texans. Takes the team, puts them number 1 in the playoffs, carries them, they look good. But the problem is, last year you could rely on Deshaun Watson's arm. Deshaun had to throw the ball in that national championship, I think it was 52 times is what he had to do it. And he stood up to the task and did great. Kelly Bryant is not a really quarterback throwing arm talent yet. He relies more on his legs, and that team relied more on their running back. So that hurt. They figured him out and they stopped him. It was very hard to see for sure. I didn't want to see that because I wanted a very good game. And it hurt me, and I know it hurt the Clemson fans to see it. Them get shut down as bad as they did because Alabama's defense made them look absolutely terrible. It was nowhere near even close. They shouldn't have been on the same field because Kelly Bryant threw for only 124 yards. His longest play was 19 yards. And I think at one point, I remember hearing with about 5 minutes left in the 4th quarter, they said he had 16 yards in this half. 16 yards in half, I think, is what they said. They shut him down. If they shut you down that bad, you need to figure out the offensive line. The offensive line needs some work because they're so fast. The kid didn't have any time. I felt bad for him. But on the other side of the ball, Jalen Hurts, let me tell you, didn't have the greatest throwing day. He only had 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he made plays when he had to. He used his legs. He threw the ball. Bo Scarborough had a big game. They ran it. They threw it. Jalen Hurts is now the winningest quarterback there is. Not forever, but as of right now in college football. The closest one to him is J.T. Barrett. He has 25 in the last 2 years. J.T. has 23. What can I say? He's good. Do I want to admit it? Yeah, he's good stuff. They got Bo Scarborough. They got Nick Saban. They got a good coach. They got a good scheme. Clemson, they just didn't show up, and it was very tough to see. Now UCF has the case to say, why did we not get in over Clemson? The other semifinal game, was the Rose Bowl. By far, the best game there was in bowl season this year for the 2nd year in a row. The The Rose Bowl didn't disappoint last year. When USC played Penn State, USC came back and won, at the time, in the highest scoring Rose Bowl ever. Until this year. This year right here changed it all. This year was the highest scoring Rose Bowl in Rose Bowl history, in the first ever Rose Bowl to go to overtime. I was blown away by it. It was amazing how they played it. I mean, Oklahoma came out of the gate swinging hard. First 2 drives, down the field touchdowns, no problem. Georgia, a little sluggish. They didn't get off to a hot start. They got a touchdown here, got a touchdown there. Wasn't the quickest start, but the biggest momentum change of all was when Georgia was down 17. Oklahoma kicks the ball off to them with about, say, 25 seconds left, I think is what was on the clock. They come down the field, get into field goal range, Georgia does. They kick a field goal and go into half down 14. Knowing that Oklahoma gets the ball at half, after half, to start the third. They know they stopped Oklahoma on the last 3 drives of that half. If they stopped Oklahoma on the first drive and went and punched the ball into the end zone, they were in a 1-score game. And they knew if they could do that, they were in it. Well, guess what? That's exactly what they did. And when they did it, they didn't look back. I thought for a second momentum changed when they hit the fumble. Oklahoma hit a fumble, picked the ball up, and when they picked it up and ran it back for 6. I thought momentum swung back to Oklahoma, but I was wrong. Because guess what? Georgia didn't give up. Georgia stayed right there, battled, fought, and got it. Took them to overtime. And then they both kicked field goals in the first one. Second overtime, they get ball second because Oklahoma had to go first because they got it second in the first overtime. They blocked their field goal, which to me is mind-boggling considering you should have ran the football, especially in the first one when it's 4th and 1 and you have Baker Mayfield, the Heisman Trophy winner, as your quarterback. They should have never went to second overtime because they should have scored. Oklahoma should have. So I'm blown away by that. But then even to add on top of that, like I was saying, the second overtime, Georgia's defense stops them. When they stop them, they make them kick a field goal. They get their big hands up and they block it. Well, guess what? All they got to do is score a field goal now. So not only does your defense know that they have to stop them, so now they're going to try so much harder that it's going to kill them, and they're going to do something that should not be done. Your offense is let down. Your special teams just let you down. So now all the team is down. And the other team, who just blocked the field goals, is hype because A, they came from behind. B, they just blocked your field goal. Why wouldn't they win? And Georgia did exactly that. They handed the ball off, and pew, right in the end zone they went. Touchdown. Wins the game, on to the national championship. That was a nutshell on the summary of the game. It was a lot of rushing in there. I mean, a lot. Especially for, I'd say both teams, to be honest with you. You had one player on Oklahoma who had an absolute star day. Ronnie Anderson had 28 attempts, 201 yards for Oklahoma. It's pretty good, really good day. On the other side of the ball, you had Michelle and Nick Chubb both run for over 100 yards. Michelle ran for like 100 and I think it was like 61-ish, 62-ish, and then Chubb ran for $145. Both ran for, Michael ran for 3 touchdowns. He scored the one to win the game in double overtime, and Chubb ran for 2. They both had huge runs in the game. Chubb ran for 50, and Michael ran for 75. So the running game had no problem for either team. The offensive lines were making holes. Sometimes it was pretty ugly to see, and I don't understand how they were making the holes like that, but they were. The quarterbacks didn't have bad games either, to be honest with you. Jake Fromm, true freshman, who stepped in for Jacob Eason, who was hurt, and now they put this true freshman in, stepped up and had a really good game under this pressure. He threw for 210 yards and 2 touchdowns as a true freshman. True freshman quarterback. He's 19 years old. This kid is 19. You put him in a the biggest game of his career in the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, and say, you got to put this team on your back and go do this. And guess what? He puts them on the back, takes them out there, and he beats Baker Mayfield, last year's Heisman Trophy runner-up and this year's Heisman Trophy winner, in a duel. Head-to-head matchup, beats him in a duel. Mayfield only had 287 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he beats him in a duel. Think about the confidence that kid has. The confidence that kid has now going to the national championship against Nick Saban's defense is going to be incredible. Is it going to be hard for him to win? Yeah, because that's a completely different defense than that kid has ever seen in his life. Blown away by the way they got there, and I'm going to be blown away if they win. When the gates opened, they put Alabama as a 4.5 favorite to win it. I think those odds are a little low. I think Alabama's more like a 9. But, hey, if Georgia pulls it off, congratulations to Georgia. So, would I like to see Georgia pull it off? I definitely would. In my opinion, Georgia would be awesome to pull it off. What happened? I don't know. I think Alabama is going to be very tough to beat. So, obviously the favorite is Alabama. They're favored by 4.5 even in Vegas. So, I think it's going to be tough. The big winners and losers, though, we're going to go to the bowl games, the whole breakdown of all of them, all the games that happened. But the big winners and losers of all of this were obviously there's 2 conferences. The 2 conferences were the big losers and winners. That's the biggest 2 I can think of. Your Pac-12, the biggest loser by far. They went 1-8 to the playoffs. 1-8. That's the worst ever by a conference in football, in a bowl games. 1-8. It's not very good. But your winners, on the other hand, the Big Ten. Almost the first conference to go undefeated through the bowls ever. 1 game short. And the 1 game that was lost was the Outback Bowl, Michigan and South Carolina. It was a close game. They had to put in a 3rd-string quarterback, Michigan did, because John O'Korn, not very strong, and their other quarterback, Jordan Spieth, was hurt and is transferring out. So, they use a 3rd-string quarterback in Peters, Brandon Peters is his name, to try to take this team there. And they almost did it. I mean, they played really good the first half, but the second half they fell apart. But that's where most of your games are won in the second half. They had 23 unanswered points, South Carolina did, and Michigan turned the ball over 5 times. You can't turn a football over 5 times. If you can't hold on to it, you ain't even giving yourself a chance to score points. So, losing the game, I'm not really surprised, but upsetting to see the Big Ten not go undefeated through bowl season. Hurts me. I'm a Big Ten fan. But you always have next year, and it shows that the Big Ten is that good. And I understand everybody's saying, well, the Big Ten, the SEC's got the national championship. Okay, who cares? I mean, congratulations, you have the national championship. But you know who the big loser is out of that? ESPN. And ESPN lost because not only did the NCAA hurt them by only selecting a small portion of the United States to watch that game, the southeast portion, a lot of the other people really won't care about it. Like the West Coast won't, most of the people in the Midwest, a lot of people up more towards the New York, Maine, Massachusetts, they won't care about that. Basically, you limited yourself to the southern market. If I was ESPN, I'd be pretty upset. But maybe that's what ESPN wants. I don't know. If I was ESPN, I would be upset because I've limited myself to a smaller market of people to watch a football game. That's my opinion. Couple notes real quick. We know a lot of the bowls are over. So a lot of these players have declared for the draft. The big ones that we all want to know about. Josh Allen, quarterback of Wyoming, declared he's going. Sam Darnold, quarterback, USC, said he's going. Saquon Barkley, the running back at Penn State, going. Kerryon Johnson, running back, Auburn, going. And my guy, who I think is really good, Josh Rosen, quarterback UCLA, going. So all these big guys who everybody wanted to know about, they're declaring for the draft and they're going. So it's going to be a really good draft. It's all shaking out to find out who's going to be the number 1 pick. This is the quarterback year. Who's it going to be? Do you take the quarterback in Josh Rosen? Do you take Josh Allen? Sam Darnold? Or do you say, hey, we're the Browns. We already got our quarterback of the future in Deshaun Kaiser. Do we get Saquon Barkley? Or do you say, let's get Saquon first because we know with the 4th pick we can still get Josh Allen. It's going to be a shakeout, folks. Trust me, predictions are going to be crazy when we find out who gets who because of who went pro. Also, the last shout I have out in college football, I want to give a huge shout out to Kansas State coach Bill Snyder. Bill Snyder, I just want to say that's awesome. You are 78 years old. Sorry, I got my numbers confused there. 78 years old, and you're still standing on the sideline coaching football. I hope at 78 years old, I can A, be on TV, B, still be on the radio, or do something with sports, because it's 78 years old and you're still ticking and you're not just relaxing. That is awesome. Huge shout out to Coach Snyder and K-State. Keep it up, my man. So with that being said, I want to segue over to the NFL because we all know what just happened. Last week of football. It's playoff time, baby. It's set. The field is ready to go. I know, ratings are down. You don't have to tell me. I looked. Ratings are down 9.7 on the season for the NFL. 9.7. Yes, the logistics are out. So, playoff picture is set. Games have been played, and we are ready to play football. Your teams in the AFC are obviously New England at 1. Then you have Pittsburgh 2. You got Jacksonville 3. Kansas City 4. Titans 5. And then you have Buffalo in at 6. Yes, folks, I said the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo is in the playoffs. Yes, amazing. They got in first time in the longest drought. It's the longest drought in football. I think it's been 17 years since they've made it. It's the longest drought in professional sports, and they're in. So, congratulations. They got in when I thought, excuse me again, the Ravens were a lock. The Ravens gave up a touchdown to the Bengals 44 seconds. 44 seconds left on the clock to beat the Ravens. The Bengals beat the Ravens, puts the Bills in the playoffs. Ding, 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 ding. That is awesome. There were grown men crying in the locker room, screaming, yelling, crying. And to see the emotion, amazing. Made me feel like just a sports fan. I felt so passionate about the sport of football right then and there. And I didn't think about the protest of the NFL, or I didn't think about anybody being beat. All I thought about was the family that those guys had with each other, and it was amazing. And that's what I like to see, because that was a team, and that was an owner, and that was everybody who stood with each other through the thick, the thin, and now they're in the playoffs. And they got a shot to, I'm not saying go win it all, but they definitely have a shot to go beat Jacksonville this week, because they are in Jacksonville this week for the playoff game. Do they have a shot to do it? I think so. The reason I say that, Blake Bortles had high games, had low games. But what kind of game is he going to have? He's inconsistent. Tyrod Taylor, mobile quarterback, has a big wide receiver who he's getting better with. They got a good defense. I think, and it's in a warm weather area, that they can find a way to win that game. That is one of the toughest games to pick this weekend. If not the toughest game to pick, that is. So I think Buffalo could beat Jacksonville. And if they do, they have to go to New England the following weekend, and I think they can give New England a fight too. I understand New England is getting better, but I think they can give them a fight because they're going to be in cold weather, and they are a cold weather team too. So, but you can't go against Tom Brady. I think he wins that match either way. The other matchup on the AFC, Kansas City Chiefs and the Tennessee Titans. That was going to be a tough one to pick for me. It was going to. But after I got some information that I got earlier today, not so hard. DeMarco Murray, out, not playing. Okay, easy. Kansas City wins the game. No questions asked. I mean, you're relying on Marcus Mariota, and then you have a running back from Alabama. I can't remember who it is. I don't even remember. They got a running back out of Alabama. Derrick Henry. Sorry. I lied. I did. They got Derrick Henry. And you got Alex Smith on the other side of the ball. You got Kareem Hunt. You have Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Too much firepower on the other team for Kansas on the offense. And not to mention they have a great defense over there too. I understand they fell apart for a little part of the year. I think they're back on track. And I don't think Tennessee has a shot to win this game. So Kansas City, that is a lock. If you're picking a lock, Kansas City is a lock. So if you're putting money down, lock Kansas City. I don't know the spread, but Kansas City a lock. I think Kansas City wins by 14 points. Easy. Maybe 17. NFC side of the football, here you have 1, Philadelphia, 2, Minnesota, 3, the LA Rams, 4, New Orleans, 5, you got Carolina, and 6, you have Atlanta. You have 3 teams. 3 teams out of the NFC South in this playoffs here. 3. You have the champions out of the division, New Orleans, playing the team that finished second in the division with the Carolina Panthers, and the team that finished third in the division, the Atlanta Falcons. Holy smokes. That's crazy to me to see that. But Carolina traveled to New Orleans to play the Saints. That's going to be a good game. And the reason I say that, I know you want to take Drew Brees. I would take Drew Brees too. But how hard is it to beat the same team 3 times in anything? It's hard. Very hard. So, I would take New Orleans, but I'd be leery of it as well. Because they're trying to beat Carolina 3 times in 1 year. It's going to be tough. They both have playoff experience. Cam Newton's won an MVP. Drew Brees has been to the Super Bowl. Drew Brees has won a Super Bowl. Cam Newton's been to the Super Bowl. Lost the Super Bowl. They've both been there, done that. They both have playoff experience. But Drew Brees has a better running back team this year with the best running back combination in football with Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. No knock against Carolina because I love Carolina. They have an awesome player in Christian McCaffrey whose first year looks amazing, and it would be nothing spectacular. It would be way better if Kamara didn't have the year he had. And then you have Jonathan Stewart. So you have great running backs on both sides of the ball. Your big question, though, is your quarterback, and I think Drew Brees wins that matchup because Cam Newton has not had the year, and Cam Newton's team has backed him up more this year than any year possible. His numbers are worse than Dak Prescott's numbers this year. No knock against Dak, but Dak didn't even make the playoffs. Cam did, and his numbers are worse. So his team has really helped him out a lot this year. And I think New Orleans wins that game. The other one, the LA Rams and Atlanta. That one there, it's kind of tough. Yeah, it's tough. It definitely is. It's a tough game to choose. When you first think about it, you say, well, the Rams, obviously. But then you step back and you say, well, I don't know. Because Matt Ryan is the quarterback, and they got really good running backs, and they got a good coach in Dan Quinn, and well, that's a first-time head coach, and the #1 overall pick in the draft, and they're young, and can they beat a team that's got playoff experience? The answer to that, yes, they can do it. Because Jared Goff and Todd Gurley look amazing. Ever since Sean McVay showed up there as the head coach, that team, I don't know what he has done, but they look so good. He took that team from nothing to something. You couldn't even watch that team last year. Last year, if you even tried to watch them, you were throwing up in a trash can. This year, you could sit there and watch the whole game because it looks like poetry. Todd Gurley's getting the holes, hitting the seam, busting down the field for 50, 60 yards. Todd Gurley's running it. Then you got Jared Goff out there looking like Peyton Manning, launching this baby, looking like a rock star. Can they do it? I don't see why they can't. Atlanta's not had the greatest year this year, but they do have the playoff experience. Their defense is okay. It's not great in Atlanta, but it's okay. And I think that the Rams find a way to beat them because the Rams have played better defenses than Atlanta and beat them. I understand it's playoff time. People go to a different level. The atmosphere is different. But remember, Atlanta's traveling across country as well. The Rams are at home, so they're sleeping in their own beds. They're in their own facility. They have their own fans. Understand you have that young quarterback and that young coach and all of that. Rams win it. So that puts the Rams playing Minnesota, and that puts New Orleans playing Philly next week. I think that's how they shake out. So you have next week, after this playoffs here over, I think you have New England will be playing Kansas City, and Jacksonville will be playing Pittsburgh. I think Jacksonville finds a way to pull it off. I'm not saying Buffalo wins, but I say Buffalo has a shot. That could be the one you would want to look at for the upset. I think Jacksonville still finds a way to do it. So I put Jacksonville to win. They play Pittsburgh. Kansas City will play New England. Then I think LA wins, and they play Minnesota. And I think New Orleans wins and plays Philly. That's what I see happening. Now, after that, you have to see how these games shake out, because you already know Nick Foles is hurt for Philly. So I don't think Nick Foles has that good of a game, and I think he's not going to look that great. And seeing that Minnesota is going to be playing the Rams will beat Minnesota, even though they're a 2 seed, because they got Case Keenum as a quarterback. Case Keenum. Sorry, Rams win it. So you have to see, that's what I'm saying, you have to look and see how it shakes out. It depends on who plays who over there. Then on the AFC side, you got New England playing Kansas City, and then you have Pittsburgh playing Jacksonville. Pittsburgh should have no problem beating Jacksonville. They got the 3 Bs. I understand Jacksonville's got the best defense, but you have to see how it shakes out. Also, New England should have no problem beating Kansas City. They've done it plenty of times in the playoffs and never checked up. So, no questions there what's going to happen on that deal. I don't think that's any questions whatsoever. But we all know, since the playoffs have started, there's been a lot of coaches released from their duties in the NFL. A lot. Let's just say there's been a few. You've had Arizona's Bruce Arians. He is retired. You had the Giants fire their coach before the season was over. Then you had the Colts fire theirs and Chuck Pagano right after the season was over. Then Jack Del Rio was released from the Raiders after signing a contract extension. Crazy. Got an extension, fire him the following year. Nuts. Then you got the Lions, who fired Jim Caldwell. Then the Bears fire Lovie Smith. There's a lot of openings. And where would you go if you were available coach? If you were getting talked to, where would you go? Me? My 3 options, I have 3 that are my favorite. My 3 favorites are Indianapolis, and then you have the Raiders and the Lions. Those are my 3 favorites. And the reason why is if you look at the franchise, a franchise has to have a good quarterback. And a good quarterback is what the franchise is built around. Arizona's quarterback, Carson Palmer, just retired after 15 years in the season. He's 12th all-time on the passer, yards passing. Amazing. Will he get into the Hall of Fame? He should, because I know a lot of people say he shouldn't, but he should. I know he's 12th. He doesn't have any Super Bowls, but everybody says that. And the reason he should get in is because he was in dysfunctional Cincinnati and made Cincinnati somebody and took them to the playoffs. Then went to dysfunctional the Raiders, made them a team and got shipped out. Then went to Arizona, who was terrible, was like 4-11, and made them functional. Tore his got them to the playoffs. Following year started 6-0, tore his ACL, then came back the following year and went like 11-4 or something. So, should he be? Yeah. He just didn't have the pieces there for him. He got put in bad situations. Good player, bad situation. Carson Palmer should be in the playoffs. Or not in the playoffs, in the Hall of Fame. That's my opinion. A lot of people don't think he should be. My opinion. Sorry to go off on that rant. So, then you have New York, who has Eli Manning. We don't know if Eli Manning is going to be a quarterback. They're going to draft a quarterback. They're going to keep Eli Manning. They're going to, what are they going to do? They got the number 2 pick in the draft. What are you going to do? You're going to keep Eli Manning or you're not? A lot of stuff in the air there. Then you got the Colts. Andrew Luck, franchise quarterback. If he's healthy, that's the first thing I'm asking if I go in for an interview. How healthy is Andrew Luck? And I want documentation. That's what I'm doing. So, Colts. Raiders. You got Derek Carr. Another franchise quarterback. Kid's got a cannon on him. If he gets the right coaching, they're good. We've seen it. They just had an off year this year. Injuries, just not the season they had in mind. Lions. Matt Stafford. I understand a lot of people say Matt Stafford doesn't have the record to back it up. But, do you know this? Matt Stafford is one of the most comeback quarterbacks in the fourth quarter ever. Yeah, he's good. He can bring a team from behind to win. I understand you don't want to be behind to win. You want to be out front so you don't have to worry about that. But he's done it. He's a franchise quarterback. The kid is good. The other one, the Bears, kind of interested in it because Mitch Trubisky Young kid, shows like he's got potential, could potentially be a really good quarterback down the road. But it's not in my top three. My top three, like I said, were the Colts, Raiders, Lions. Those are my top three. Well, we got some information on the people who are getting talked to by some of these teams here. Obviously, you have the DC from Charlotte here. The defensive coordinator is DC. Steve Wilkes has talked to the Colts and the Giants. They want to talk to him. He hasn't talked, but they've asked to talk to him. The Colts have also said they would like to talk to Josh McDaniels, Matt Patricia, the offense and defensive coordinators from the New England Patriots. They have also said they want to talk to David Shaw, the coach from Stanford, who I say would be the best fit and who I said would go to the NFL at some point. And they've also talked to the defensive coordinator from Houston. I don't see why that one would be that good of a deal. Logistics behind that one for me are, you have Andrew Luck. He's an awesome quarterback. But you don't have any other pieces. You lose Andrew Luck, you still need to be able to have a good season. I understand he's a franchise quarterback, but you still got to be able to manage it. And guess what? He lost J.J. Watt. Season sucked. They were 26th ranked defense in the NFL. If you lose one player and you're that bad, you need to find a way to go around it. So I don't think that's a good fit. Obviously, I think you need to go with an offensive coach. That's the way the game works now. This game's more lean towards offensive players than it used to be. It used to be defensive players. Now it's offensive. It leans towards the offensive guys. All the rules are directed towards offensive players now. So get an offensive coach. Get that offense rolling. That's all you got to do. The big one everybody knows about is John Gruden. John Gruden. Wow. This one here threw me for a loop. It definitely did, I'm not going to lie. Because John Gruden has been rumored to have an opportunity to go back and head coach the Oakland Raiders. A team that he has already head coached once. They said, we will give you ownership stake in the team. I don't know how I feel about that. It's dangerous to me. Because he can't fire himself because he's the owner. Period. You can't fire yourself when you're on. You can step down. You're going to fire yourself. And why give up ownership stake for a guy who has not coached in the league in like 8 years? And he is only 15 games over 500. His career record for a coach is 100 wins and 85 losses. That's not elite. That's not elite. John Madden lost like 34 games or something through his whole career. He was like 147 and 34 or something like that. Nuts. That's elite. That's who you hand ownership to. You don't hand it to John Gruden. He's 15 games over 500 for crying out loud. 100 wins and 85 losses. Oh, we'll give you ownership stake in the team. If you do that, that means you give Bill Belichick ownership in the Patriots. You give all these guys who've done something for these big teams and carry them for long periods of time ownership in your team. You don't do John Gruden? Are you serious? I like John Gruden. I think he's a good coach. But I don't think you go to that level handing him ownership in a team to come coach it. I understand that you want him to coach you, but man, chill out. Offer him money, not ownership stake. That's crazy. So, with that being said, I know I went on a rant there for a minute about John Gruden, ownership stakes and all that. I couldn't help it. But with all that being said, playoffs are here. Bowls are over. It's getting down to that time when football's getting to the best part of the year. So, tune in next week when we talk playoffs on the Red Line with Jimmy Red. We'll see you next week.